I'm Alberto Salazar. I was fortunate to have a long and successful running career. I was coached by some of the best coaches in the business of training athletes to perform better. I also trained with several of the best distance runners in the world over a 15-year period. I learned a lot from those coaches and from those other athletes, and I learned a few things on my own. I'd like to share with you the things that I learned that can help you to train better and perform better, no matter what level you're at.
Before we discuss any technique, defining your goals is primary. In philosophy, we discuss the sport of running as a lifestyle. Technique and training are the backbone of performance. On injury prevention, I wish I knew then what I know now. Correct mental preparation is very important. Finally, I think you'll find my racing tips will help you get to that finish line faster.
When I first started running back in high school, my goal was to be the best runner on my high school cross-country team. 4 years later, at the University of Oregon, my goal was to win an NCAA championship in cross-country. In 1981, my goal was to set a world record in the New York City Marathon. Setting goals is very important. Once you've established where you're at, they can help you to progress from there to where you want to be.
Setting and reaching goals is like moving up steps of a ladder. Fitness and fun come with the first step. Your goal may be to maximize your training time and improve speed, or to set a personal record in a race. Some runners I know spend a full year planning for one race, but I think that's a mistake. Short-term goals allow you to measure progress on the way. Except for a few dozen elite athletes going for prize money, and the well-trained seasoned runners which make up 20% of the field, the goal of the vast majority of the starters in the Honolulu Marathon and the New York Marathon is to finish, an admirable challenge for those with non-athletic backgrounds. Some runners set the rainbow at the finish of the Peachtree 10K as the goal. Stakes and commitment get a little higher if you're aiming to run in the lead pack at a race such as the Carlsbad 5000. These guys are running in the 4:20 per mile pace. This is no place for the timid. What's important is to establish your present level of fitness and to make realistic short and long-term goals. Move up the ladder one step at a time. Some of these happy 3-hour, 20-minute New York City Marathon finishers had just a year earlier struggled in with 4 and 5 hour marathons. Time is only one measure of improved performance. Here I am prior to the 1982 New York City Marathon. I didn't care about my time. My goal was to win. I was the marathon world record holder and the pressure was enormous. But I achieved my goal. Lynn Williams already had this Carlsbad 5000. The goal was not only to win, but to set a world record. Setting world records and setting personal records, getting to the finish line in one piece mentally and physically, required short and long-term goal setting. The rewards at the finish line of the Honolulu Marathon are both external and internal to the athlete who has made the commitment to smart, dedicated training. Goals help you to focus on where you want to be next month and in 6 months, and so on. Most runners like to improve, and improvement can be measured by a stopwatch, or by higher level workouts, or by a more enriched lifestyle.
My last 2 years of high school, I trained with Bill Rogers, under the great coach of the Greater Boston Track Club, Bill Squires. Coach Squires instilled in me a philosophy of thinking not just about the next race or the next season, but rather 10 years down the road. We may train or peak for a certain race, but running is a lifetime sport. It's a sport for kids and for grandparents. It goes beyond any one race or any one season.
section, I want to emphasize what I consider to be the most healthy approach to the sport. Running is a lifetime sport, and it can be undertaken successfully on any level, fast, slow, and in between. There is no more of an individual sport. How many times have you heard the story of a high school or college athlete with great potential burns out after just a few seasons, or suffers a career-ending injury because of overtraining or incorrect training? In my opinion, to be successful, even at the highest level, there needs to be a significant amount of satisfaction derived from the sport. Running needs to be fun, and it needs to be approached as a lifestyle sport. That's not to say that discomfort and sacrifice aren't part of the picture, but simply, as Dr. George Sheehan says, we don't run one marathon, we run many. I think what he means by that is that running doesn't end with a world record or the finish line of a marathon. We want to keep healthy and run for the next day or the day after. We want to run for a lifetime. That joy is available to runners of all ages and abilities. So my advice is, don't shortchange yourself. If you have a bad race or a bad season, regroup, train smarter, and go after it again. The rewards are always there.
Running's been described as a simple sport. Olympic marathoner Don Cardong describes it as, first you put your left foot forward, then you put your right foot forward, then you repeat it a few thousand times. Well, it is simple. Yet, the subtleties of head, arm, body, and leg positioning are enormous. They can greatly affect your performance.
Okay, let's get to the nitty-gritty, where the rubber meets the road. Is there one correct way to run? Where should your arms be, and your legs, and your body position? Can you actually relax at or near your maximum effort? Where should we land on our feet, toe, the ball of the foot, or heel? Let's take a look. Let's do a quick overview, head to foot, of the elements of the simple sport of running. The head. Strive for a minimum of bouncing. Very important. A relaxed jaw. A relaxed jaw means that a whole series of skeletal muscles are also relaxed. That's good. The arms. About a 90-degree bend in the elbow, a front and back swing, and a slight side-to-side swing, and relaxed hands. Okay, that was the quick overview. Is there one correct style? Should everyone run exactly like Alberto Salazar? Of course not. Body types, weight, athletic background, even your goals, all will factor into how you get from point A to point B. But within the uniqueness of an individual runner's style, there are sound and well-tested guidelines that will certainly enhance performance. Let's just look at the head. The head is always going to go up and down to a certain extent. But many runners spring up instead of forwards, losing forward thrust. That's okay for high jumpers, but it's totally wasted energy for runners. Very important. Sometimes trying a new technique or making even a slight change feels awkward at first. You should never pursue one individual style point and give away several others. I think it's important for you to think about efficiency in your running. Simply, on your next run, think about reducing head bounce. Shoulders and arms. Don't hunch up the shoulder or neck muscles. Carrying the shoulder blades low forces other skeletal muscles to be more relaxed. Arms. About a 90-degree bend of the elbow, very relaxed fingers and hands, the arms comfortably away from the body, not too high. The goal is a symmetrical, fluid, efficient stride. Let's look at some of the fast guys in action here at the Carlsbad 5000. Number 5, Ignacio Fragoso from Mexico. Very little bouncing, relaxed shoulders and arms. Slight forward lean, low knee lift. Very efficient running. Out front, Doug Padilla, a world-class middle distance runner. Very fluid with high knee lift, great leg extension, characteristics of a middle distance runner, not a marathon runner. Coming up on the inside, marathoner Ibrahim Hussein of Kenya, the Boston and New York and Honolulu marathon runner. Long but choppy arm and leg movement with a moderately high knee lift. At the elite level, more and more runners tend to specialize because the running techniques for the mile and marathon, for example, are quite different. When you get to this level, you gravitate towards your strongest event. Let's get back to technique. What do I think about when I'm training with a group of guys?
Basically, when I'm running with another group of guys, I don't even care what my time is. I don't look at the watch. All I concentrate on is my form and staying with the group. Eventually, the time will drop.
What part of your form do you pay attention to?
Basically, just trying to keep a forward lean with the whole body. Have the whole body at a forward angle. Almost as if I were to stop, I wouldn't be able to stand straight. I would be leaning forward and fall on my face.
Let's talk about how the arms are carried. More than most runners, I like to direct my arms forward as much as possible, in the direction where I'm going. Some elite runners swing their arms side to side more without causing inefficient side-to-side sway. But aiming my arms forward, coupled with my forward lean, gives me a little efficiency advantage that can mean so much. Let's look at a few fast guys who have radically different styles. That's Italian Salvatore Bettio on the left, and U.S. Olympian Ed Eyestone on the right, here in the closing mile of the 7.1-mile Falmouth Road Race. Bettio, short, stocky, muscled. Eyestone, 6'3", long and lanky. As you would expect, Eyestone's stride is much longer, but for his build, he's not overstriding. Let's look at the leg kick. Eyestone has a much higher back kick, almost hitting his behind. Although he's an Olympic marathoner, he was an NCAA track champion and has retained some of that form, such as his trailing leg extends fully to give maximum thrust and a much higher back kick, such as we saw with Padilla earlier. Let's look at my stride. As I get up to speed and my turnover increases, my kick gets higher but never very high. I'm what might be called a traditional marathoner with a shuffling stride. You should concentrate on bringing your knee forward as far as it will naturally go, then dropping your foot straight down, not reaching out, trying to keep your hips above, not behind your foot plant, then extending completely off the back leg, naturally causing a higher heel kick. Let's look at one of America's top female runners, Kim Jones of Spokane. Kim has a real nice, efficient running style. Very little head bounce, nice, easy arms carriage, slight forward lean, and that compact stride of a marathon. From behind, look at the comfortable arm carriage just away from the body, and a little bit of an unorthodox foot strike for one of the world's best marathoners, in that she lands more towards the ball rather than the heel of her foot. More on foot plant later. When I go to races around the country, I see thousands of runners pinning on numbers. Some are well prepared and really care about their times, and some are just out for a workout. But all runners, including myself, can be helped by periodically thinking about technique. Have I got into a bad habit of bouncing, or swaying side to side because of bad arm swing? Are my shoulder muscles relaxed? What happens when I lean forward a little and when I kick higher? Or extend my leg further? Think about technique. One of the reasons we run is it clears the head and gives us a chance to smell the flowers. Don't preoccupy yourself with technique. Maybe once a week, make part of a workout or technique session. It will improve your training and racing. Here I am setting a course record in the 1981 Falmouth Road Race. Notice how relaxed I am from the waist up. Even though I'm in full racing stride and my pulse is probably above 170, I'm not muscling or forcing the pace. Notice my foot plant. I land on the heel of my foot and then roll off the toe. Even Carl Lewis's heel touches the ground in a 100-meter race. I would recommend that you really try landing on your heels. This is a good illustration of the slight forward lean and the relaxed shoulders and arms. Let's look at some international caliber runners at the 17-mile mark of the Boston Marathon. There's two-time winner number 10, Jeff Smith, and next to him number 2, Steve Jones, sub 2:08 marathon. They're working hard, but well within themselves. And notice how they are from the waist up. Arms, neck, shoulder, and facial muscles are all relaxed. A few miles later and things look a lot different. Now here's an efficient one, Toshihiko Seiko of Japan. A very relaxed and symmetrical stride. A very high turnover rate. Seiko has short legs and he's going very fast. But the high turnover doesn't make everything come apart. This guy can run. Francie LaRue Smith, a 5-time Olympian at distances from 1500 to the marathon. Let's look at her technique. Relaxed shoulders, a low natural arm swing that gives her a little more momentum with each stride, and a moderate knee lift and back leg extension. It's easy to see how Francie can be successful at a variety of distances. If you're stuck in a pack like this, don't concern yourself with technique. Just stay upright, like a halfback. If you see some daylight, go for it. Efficient, relaxed. 2 words I've used a lot to describe the elements of good running technique. Let's look at a few other sports to see if there are parallels. Here, in the Nordic or cross-country nationals, this lead pack of women skates across the snow with an ease that hides the full body effort that this sport requires. They are working very hard, going fast, yet making it look easy, because there is no unnecessary movement. Here's Tour de France winner Greg LeMond in the DuPont Criterium. Talk about efficiency. Greg drives up a hill, staying with the pack, using as little energy as possible, saving it for when he's really going to need it. Everything he's putting in is directed toward getting up the hill. Ironman champion Mark Allen, one of the sport's smartest trainers. I'm no swimming expert, but above water, Mark's swimming stroke is not what you would call picture perfect. But down here, Mark pushes a lot of water backward very efficiently. His objective is to move forward, letting the arms and legs work together in a coordinated effort. Full stride, I make a conscious effort to do 2 things, lean forward and relax from the waist up. The arm swing is assertive, but not over-exaggerated. I try to extend completely off my back leg to maximize momentum. I'm not the prettiest runner in the world, but I am efficient. Do you have to have the look of a classic runner to be successful? No way. Teresa Orndorff has run a 2:35 marathon and a sub 32-minute 10K, yet her style is hard to describe. But it works for her. The old expression, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, probably applies to runners as well. Another radically unconventional runner, in the white long sleeve shirt, Pat Peterson. A running coach might say that Pat bounces, weaves, overstrides, and has an overall awkward technique. I won't say that. Yet Pat's a 2:10 marathoner, so it works for him. But for 95% of runners, the things we talked about are valid, and even the tendency to try them will improve your performance. In the middle, Olympic steeplechase champion Julius Kariuki. A long, bouncy stride, yet very relaxed from the waist up. On the left, miler Steve Scott, running this Carlsbad 5000 at slower than his normal mile pace, thus with less leg extension and knee lift. Remember that old song? The head bone's connected to the backbone's connected to the... If you can get it right at the top, it can work all the way to the ground. Next time you go out for a run, think about your overall body position. Are you upright or forward? Play with it a little bit. Try to run a half mile totally relaxed from the waist up. With proper technique, the stride length will take care of itself. A little time on technique can go a long way.
The quest for optimum running performance can involve a variety of different training methods: hills, intervals, long runs, cross-training, cross-country. Depending on your goals, all can be part of helping you achieve your optimum running performance.
In this section of the tape, I'll talk about the parameters of training: how many miles and at what speed, hill running for strength, and drills for stretching. It's also good to do some trail running to give legs a break from the asphalt. And cross-training helps minimize injury problems and adds strength and variety. As we look at some elite runners going fast, I would like to talk about the variety in my training in 1981 when I was 23, prior to setting the world record at the New York City Marathon. I was running about 120 miles per week in 4 hard workouts. 1 session of intervals on the track, 1 on the trails, a hill workout, a long run, and weight training 3 times a week. I held this regimen for 8 weeks and then tapered for the 3 weeks prior to the race. I certainly don't suggest that you attempt this level of work, but that's what it took me to run 4:54 per mile for 26 miles. Now, more than 10 years later, I find that I need a little more time between hard workouts to recover. So I only run 2 to 3 hard workouts per week to maintain a very high level of fitness. Sometimes it's easy to warm up before you train a race. Warm up or stretch. Now let's get started. In the most general terms, for reference only, let's look at a week of training for a pretty good runner. A runner whose goal is a 46:30 10K. Running 5 miles a week isn't going to make it, and running 50 is counterproductive. More isn't better. Weekly speed work, drills, and cross-training are all important for this runner. How to get your mileage in? If you're running, say, 20 miles a week, you may want to run 4 or 5 days a week. Remember, we're talking about 10K training here, so your long run of the week might be 8 miles. So let's say an 8-mile day, a day off, then a 5-mile day, then some combination of an easy day and some speed work. Increasingly over the years, the consensus of coaching opinion has less and less stressed the need for miles just for the sake of miles. The emphasis now is much more on quality rather than quantity. For many of us, the training is an end in itself, part of the running lifestyle that we enjoy. We're lucky because we know the joys of the sport, a sport which many people consider boring and painful. There's no necessity for competition, but for hundreds of thousands of us, the challenge and excitement of competition and the quest for faster times is important and offers the opportunity to live life a little fuller. These guys are flying along at about 4:20 pace. To be able to race somewhat comfortably at the pace, they need to do some training at a faster pace. So, for our 10K runner with a goal of 7:30 per mile pace, I suggest some speed work in intervals at 7-minute pace. For our 10K runner, I would suggest track intervals such as 2 half miles, 2 quarter miles, and 4 220s, with plenty of rest between repeats. And the pace should start at 7 minutes per mile and get faster. Speed work doesn't have to be done on a track. Fartlek, or speed play, is a training technique whereby, as you're running down the road, you pick out 2 trees or telephone poles and pick up the pace between them. In my training, I incorporate both the more disciplined track intervals with the freelancing of speed play. Both work well. triathlon is an increasingly competitive sport. These Southern California triathletes do intervals so they can build up speed, endurance, and mental toughness. Interval training requires discipline and focus. Heck, it's hard work. Training in a group can make the going a little less difficult. Important point. Think about technique during your speed work sessions. This is the best time to work on the relaxation of the upper body and efficient body movement. Here I am about 10 years ago doing intervals on the cinder track adjacent to Hayward Field at the University of Oregon. Maybe I should have been a Southern California triathlete. That was my coach, Bill Dellinger. And many of these cold, wet Oregon mornings, it was pretty hard to keep going. Hard to keep sight of the goal, a world record in the marathon, and a berth on the United States Olympic team. An athlete who tells you that the training is always easy and always fun simply hasn't been there. Goals can be elusive, which makes the difficult journey all the more rewarding. Once a week intervals or speed work at no slower than 1:45 per quarter pace. Some runners make the mistake of thinking, if 6 intervals are good, then 12 must be twice as good. Not so. Have a plan and stick with it. Let's take a lighthearted look at some runners who really overdo it. The 6-day racers. They go around a track for 6 days, catching a few hours sleep here and there. The record for the event is well over 100 miles a day. I don't recommend this for the runner who wants to have a long career. Adventure running is another variation on the sport. These men and women take on the desert in the annual Marathon of the Sahara in Africa. It's a stage race. The runners carry their own food, water, and emergency shelter. It's not exactly a 5K down Main Street. The sport of running attracts a wide range of enthusiasts. Now have kiddie events on the schedule. And I like that because it helps to keep everything in perspective. Sure, prize money's important, but I never met an athlete who got into the sport because of money. You have to like it a lot. The work required to get a runner to realize his or her full potential is significant. The first time I ran the New York City Marathon, I was surprised to find there were hills in Manhattan. Not like the Pikes Peak Marathon, but little hills. If you're a runner, hills come with the territory. There are many hill climb races, like this race up Squaw Valley, that require very specific hill training. But let's look at the overall uphill and downhill technique requirements. Uphill running is good for lots of things. It builds endurance, builds leg muscles that ordinarily don't get used too much, and it forces you to work hard cardiovascularly. If technique is important on level ground, it's twice as important on hills. That's downtown Miami. Some of these guys came to Florida thinking they were in for a flat race course. The little hills and the bridges separated the lead pack. If you're going to race on hills, you have to train on hills. Marcus Barreto shows excellent uphill form, an exaggerated lean, and more pronounced backward and forward swinging of the arms, a slight shortening of the stride length, and a concerted effort to relax rather than try to overpower the hill. I recommend getting up further on the toes and shortening your stride length. Here's the Doomsday Hill in the Bloomsday Run in Spokane. There's Rolanda Vera on the left, leaning into the hill and pumping the arms. Still, notice the relaxed upper body. Ed Eyestone simply leans and is careful not to overstride. Both runners are looking down, which I recommend, along with shortening the stride. One of the most important things I learned about hill running is not to try to run harder on the hills, because the increased effort doesn't reward you as much as an equivalent increased effort would reward you on the flats. Another way to put that is, a lot of races are not won on the hills, but lost on the hills. Notorious for its significant hills in the first half of the course, the Cascade Runout 15K in Portland. My recommendation, try to get to the top with an even effort pace. For example, if your pulse is about 150 going into the hills, you should try to keep your pulse at that level, even if it means slowing down through the hills, as it surely will. Thus, what's important is the evenness of your effort, not your mile splits. Whatever goes up must come down. Just the opposite of going uphill. When you go downhill, you must increase the pace to maintain an even effort as measured by a steady pulse, which is the most reliable measure of effort that runners have. There's John Sinclair on the right, showing great form. Without overstriding, he's letting gravity do most of the work, going very fast, yet under control. The key is that same slight forward lean that I recommend for running on the flats. Surprisingly, running downhill takes practice to learn how to take advantage of gravity without getting out of control. My old coach, Bill Squire, said that until you've fallen a couple of times running downhill in practice, you're not leaning forward enough. Earlier, we talked about fartlek, or speed play. One of the best builders of cardiovascular fitness is a training course with a series of ups and downs. Similar to the Bradley Hills here at the Prim Road Race in Flint, Michigan. You never quite get a chance to recover before the next hill, forcing you to work hard. It's like surging in a race. You have to train yourself to be able to put down the accelerator once in a while, then back off, then do it again. Anyone who's been part of an organized running program knows that teamwork and camaraderie are part of the running experience. They also know that coaches like certain drills to help improve performance. Let's look at some of the drills these Ohio State runners are doing. One of the purposes of drills is to break down the running motion into its separate elements. These high knee lifts are a coordination drill that strengthens the quads. Skipping and uphill bounding exaggerate the full extension of the trailing or driving leg. Squat drill will make your neighbors curious, but also aids flexibility and strength using your natural body weight. How important is weight training for runners? Very important if you want to get that extra edge. Overall muscle tone, not just the specific muscles used for running, enables you to dig down a little deeper. At the end of a race, when you're really tired, if you still have some arm strength, you can power your way to the finish line. Weight training and calisthenics also allow you to work on any weak areas. Most coaches now recommend weight and strength training because they reduce injuries. Very few successful runners now only run. When I got to the University of Oregon, I soon realized that I lacked the strength that seemed to be needed for the shorter races, 5K and below. As I moved up the competitive ladder, so too I upped my miles, the quality of my workouts, and my weight and strength training. You can't or shouldn't do it all on the track or on the road. When I won my NCAA cross-country title, in the challenging snow and mud of the course at the University of Wisconsin, I was really glad I'd spent time in the weight room because I needed a total and complete body effort to get to that finish line first. Sure, we did weights. The concept of cross-training was really new. A sport like swimming offers great cardiovascular conditioning without the pounding on the pavement. You can't train for a marathon or a 10K by only swimming, but you can almost certainly get to a higher level of fitness if you incorporate swimming, skiing, cycling, or rowing into your program. I strongly recommend cross-training for runners who are serious about their sport. Another benefit of cross-training is that it offers a mental break from what can be the grind of running-only training. Also, a different sport can help alleviate some of those running sore spots before they get to be serious injuries. If you have access to a shell or a good rowing machine, you'll find that this activity is very complementary to running. The cardiovascular demands are enormous, and it's almost a full body workout. Some days I don't even want to think about a run. It's easy to get stale. Those are the days that a mountain bike is worth its weight in gold. Variety is important. Remember now, we're talking about running as a lifestyle. Don't get locked into just one route. Explore the neighborhood, wherever it may be. Of your workouts. 6 months from now, a year from now, you'll find it very useful in analyzing what worked in the past and helping you plan the future. Runners have to run miles, but how you do those miles is much more important than how many miles you run. To race fast, you have to train fast. For a 9-minute miler, 8-minute pace is speed work.
I've been in the lead pack of the Boston, New York City, and Olympic marathons. One thing I can tell you is there's no fat guys up there. An important part of how you perform is what you eat and how you eat.
One of the elements of training that has changed radically just in the last 15 years is the emphasis on good nutrition. Athletes are stronger and faster because of better coaching, smarter training, better equipment, and better nutrition. Americans eat way too much fat and protein. Athletes in particular need more carbohydrates. I'm not an expert on nutrition, but in any case, I recommend eating more fruits and vegetables. Nutrition is as important as technique and training.
I don't know of a serious runner at any level who's had an injury-free career. I've had my share of injuries. Smart training and racing, however, can greatly reduce the injury problem.
Many times in my career, I wasn't smart. I trained when I should have rested. Always err in the direction of too little, not too much. Don't try to get back in shape in one day or 1 week. It often backfires. Cross-training can keep you fit cardiovascularly while your injury heals. Dedicated runners know how difficult it is not to run. You like the fresh air, the change of seasons, you like the sights and sounds that come with the sport. But let's face it, other than football and maybe basketball, There's no other sport where your body takes such a pounding. The asphalt can really beat up a runner, particularly one with poor technique. It's almost a catch-22 situation. One element of increased performance is increasing the intensity and quality of your training. But if you go just a little too far, you get hurt and you're back to square one. The key is to know how far you can go. The best advice I can give is listen to your body. There are signals, a little soreness in the calf or Achilles or knee. When in doubt, back off. There's a time to be a hero and get to that finish line or finish a workout at any cost. But I can speak with great experience and authority on this. The four-letter word that best served me when I was at my peak is R-E-S-T, rest. Overdoing it in training or racing only leads to more problems. Many runners have strapped on a wet vest to maintain cardiovascular fitness while an injury heals. You can definitely get your heart rate up and maintain some pretty good muscle tone. Runners want to stay on the roads. Only you can establish the level of training intensity that your body can absorb. Improved technique and smart training will allow you to increase your threshold. Rest has nothing to do with laziness. Runners aren't lazy. Rest has to do with letting the body recover properly from a hard workout or race. More isn't better. Get out the bike or the skis or the bathing suit. They'll help you realize your running goals.
I trained for several years under Bill Dellinger at the University of Oregon. One of the things that he stressed was that it was important not only to be physically prepared, it was important to be mentally prepared.
For both training and racing, have a plan. Don't go to the track without a specific workout plan. On the hard days of training and on race day, discomfort is part of the territory. Accept it and try to reach beyond it. By being positive, you can sometimes surprise yourself by doing better than expected. Early in my career, I was accused of being overconfident and even cocky, but I really was only confident that I'd done the training and didn't see any reason to say otherwise. April 19th, 1982, the starting line of the Boston Marathon. This is a pretty good example of mental preparation. 6 months earlier, I had set a world record in the marathon in New York City. Now I was a marked man, and rumor had it Dick Beardsley was in fabulous shape and ready to go. My training had not gone that well prior to the race, but I knew I had a high level of fitness. I had overheard Beardsley's coach saying the way to beat Salazar is to be very aggressive until the top of the Heartbreak Hills at 20 miles. So I prepared myself to stay with Beardsley till then make a move. His coach made the mistake of broadcasting the plan. If he hadn't, I might have let Beardsley go. But I was prepared and had a plan, albeit a defensive plan. I think I broke Beardsley mentally, not physically. I spent a little time in the medical tent getting fluids. Remember, do as I say, not as I do. At the Laurel Wreath ceremony, I brought Beardsley up with me. He made the race, showed me a toughness which I haven't seen in too many American marathoners, before or since. At the 1984 United States Olympic Marathon Trials, there were at least 25 guys who had the credentials to make the team, but only a handful were mentally as well as physically prepared. These are shots from the film No Tomorrows. I'll never forget that race. Only the strong survive. Preparation for training is as important as tying your shoe. Don't get locked into only one way of doing things. The best laid plans have a way of coming apart quickly. Always be positive. Work at being positive. It can be a learned skill.
Not all serious runners like to race. Those that do, however, know that there's nothing like race day. Pinning on that number, warming up a little bit, getting to the starting line, watching the gun go up in the air, and the charge of adrenaline when the gun goes off and the pack surges forward.
To race well, you have to pace well. From when the gun goes off, go over the course before the race. You don't want to be surprised by Mount Everest at the 5-mile mark. Avoid the medical tent by hydrating before and during the event. Occasionally, let your hair down. Let the chips fall where they may. Get into it right away. There's a natural tendency to charge out at the start. I've seen 10-minute milers charge out on world record pace for about 30 seconds. The surest way to blow a race plan is to run the first mile too hard and then spend the rest of the race recovering. Because of pre-race tension and excitement, usually you have to force yourself to slow down the first mile. Elite runners have to settle in as well. The key is to expend as little energy as possible early in the race. The rules are a little different for the men and women who have a chance to win. Some of the runners in the lead pack are running easy, some are barely hanging on, but you have to maintain contact. The scenery at Falmouth is great, but the roads are narrow and the course gets crowded. It may take a few miles before you can get to your desired pace. Falmouth is the kind of race where times may be secondary to the overall race experience. Unless it's an all-women's race, the elite women can get lost among the men. Usually later in the race, because they are running an even pace, they end up passing lots of guys who went out too fast. Some runners simply gravitate to the front of the pack their way, whether running 4:30 pace or 8:30 pace. They're more comfortable in the front, and they can control things better. My suggestion is to fight that tendency to be aggressive early. Let someone else do the work early. You'll have plenty of time to do your share. They say a marathon is half over at 20 miles. That's the time to play your cards. You may get to the starting line of a race and you're a little fatigued from a strong week of training. You may have to be aggressive right from the gun to hold your pace. Here's leader Rolando Vera showing how to take fluid without missing a beat. These guys miss out on fluids because they're not on the right side of the course. Know the location of the aid stations. It's one thing to pass up an aid station. It's another to try to get fluids and miss. Here's the 88th Olympic Marathon trials at about the 5-mile mark. It's an uphill. There's an aid station on the right. Steve Spence, far outside, sprint to get into position for a cup of fluid. Steve didn't want the surge, but access to fluid was more important. This aid station is in a bad position. And surprisingly, many race directors don't think the location of the aid stations is important. When you see an aid station up ahead, begin to position yourself right away to get a clear shot at the cups. In the cap, Rolando Vera again. Del Mar dos Santos, and inside, the San Blas Marathon in Puerto Rico. It's pushing 80 degrees. Vera misses water twice, and then gets an empty cup. That's physically and mentally tough. And Dos Santos knows it. About the only way you can really hurt yourself in a race is to dehydrate. I've done it. Don't do it. Hydrate before, during, and after a race. A little strategy. Here in the Cleveland Revco 10K, Keith Brantley looks around. Brantley has a good kick, and even with a few miles to go in the race, he's making a plan for a surge to the tape. Men leaders in the Bora Bora 10K in Java, $1 million race, $500,000 cash for men's or women's world record. Look at this surge. Addis Abeba heard the 4K split and takes off. I don't recommend this. He probably smelled the money, and he is a 27:18 10K runner. At some point in the race, it comes down to racing, not just the last 100 yards, but it's good to get a little competitive. In a 10K, maybe at the 4 or 4.5 mile mark, you should move up on a few guys. Pick it up a little. Of course, if you went out too fast, you're going to be one of the guys that gets passed. Most racers are running time trials, and that's fine. But shoulder-to-shoulder racing adds another dimension. Look up ahead and go after somebody. Sometimes an aid station is a good place to make a move. Be flexible. The sun was out at the start. Think of inclement weather as something that's going to bother the other guy more than you. Road racing is not a contact sport, but if you're in close quarters, you better be pretty nimble. You don't make friends by clipping heels. Tucking in is okay, as long as you eventually take a turn at the front. Don't get too close. At the 92 Women's Olympic Marathon Trials, a traffic jam. Eventual winner Janice Klecker goes down, to be helped up by eventual second place finisher Kathy O'Brien. Know the course. Here's the women's finish of the 1988 Falmouth Road Race. That's Betty Geiger streaking up on Ann Hannum. Betty was told the race finish was at the top of the hill, but it's another 200 yards down the hill to the finish. It's not often you get a chance to win a major road race. Know the course. Know your limits. Here's Cindy Welty winning Honolulu. She got to the finish line 100% spent. She knew how much she had and paced perfectly. Knowing what you have to work with on any given race day is critical. Dionisio Cerrone with a major win at Peachtree. He's very glad the race isn't another 100 yards. Here I am finishing my first marathon, New York City. I went back to Oregon and told my running friends it was easy. They kidded me about it and said, it didn't look that easy. And between you and me, it wasn't. Know your pace, know your limits. Don't get to your finish line before the real finish line. And sprinting just the last 100 yards usually means you could have held a faster pace for most of the race. The only way to find out is to pin on a number and try. The joys of racing well and finishing strong, made possible by good technique and smart training, are enormous. The only way to experience it is to plan well, be confident you're prepared, and then answer the starter's call.
I've run a lot of miles over the years, some fast and some not so fast. I've won some big races and I've had some big disappointments. But I enjoy the freedom of running and the challenge of training and competition as much now as when I first started back in high school. It's a great sport. I hope to enjoy it for a long time to come, and I hope you will too.
Additional Salazar action from Salmini Films video. Try ABC Sports New York City Marathon highlights. Millions of spectators, thousands of runners, world records, personal triumphs. Call 1-800-428-7006 to order. And the film classic, a must for any runner's video library, No Tomorrows, the story of the 1984 Men's Olympic Marathon Trials, considered to be one of the greatest races of all time. This cinematic achievement is a celebrated motivational film with lots of Salazar at his very best. Wet, wild, and wonderful. Triathlon action from start to finish. The great races, the crazy races, elite athletes and first-timers. Triathlon fever gives you the big picture in this sport charging to the front. Give it a try. From the master triathlete, 6-time Ironman champion Dave Scott thoroughly reviews the techniques of swimming, cycling, and running. The most successful specialty sports tape on the market, with segments actually taped on the Ironman course in Hawaii. A must for the triathlete. Also available, the best of running and racing for those interested in fitness and a healthy lifestyle, and Great American Road Races from Falmouth to Peachtree, from Cascade to Carlsbad. A look at the great races and what makes them great.